Well, God bless you. How y'all doing tonight? Welcome to the prophetic evolution. Uh, do me a favor, please share this as you are coming in. Um, I want to get right to it because I have some insightful things to share with you tonight. Tonight we are talking. Um, Tonight we are talking about stewardship. We dealt with the introduction last week um, on stewardship, and we dealt with the introduction last week on stewardship, and we got some good feedback. Hey, Raina, God bless you, sis. Um, we dealt with the introduction on stewardship, and tonight we're going to dig a little bit deeper in our official part one. We officially begin tonight talking about stewardship. I hope that you're taking notes. Hey, Islands. Hey, Sandra. I hope that you're taking notes because this is going to be so important to the next phase of your life. Now, this is going to be difficult in the beginning. I'm warning you now because it requires a mindset change. Stewardship requires a mindset change. Um, particularly for us, particularly for um for our people, for Black people, for yeah, for us. I'm sorry, I don't know of any other better way to put it. It requires a mindset change, and there's also warfare against what I'm about to say. Let me express the warfare first. Um, and yeah, let me express the warfare in it first so then you'll understand when I begin to share this, it is going, you, though you know what the Lord gave me is the truth, there is going to be warfare against it. Okay. Back in the 1600s, there was this dude named Willie Lynch, and he said he was a slave owner. He was talking to other slave owners, and he said, listen, while I was coming up this river, I saw that y'all had Negroes hanging from the trees, and I didn't understand it. You are killing good stock. The Because the issue is not to kill them. The solution is not to kill them, but to find a way to control them. Don't kill them, find a way to control them. If you can find a way to control them, then I if you go with my way, I have a way of controlling them that will lock them into a mindset for the next 400 years. What? That's what the dude said. If you can find a way to control them, this will lock them in for the next almost 400 years. That was in the 1600s. We're in the year 2000, and we know that demon of a man was absolutely right. I'm telling you that this is going to be problematic for some of us. Let me give you the reason why. First things first, I'm not going to draw this out. It's going, it's some of this is going to punch us, but we need to be woken up. Okay, we need to come alive, come awake. Um, One of the reasons why stewardship has been an issue that's been rejected by so many people, um, uh, so many of so many people, particularly those of the colored ethnic black persuasion, is because stewardship, the whole thought process behind stewardship is managing the resources of another, particularly managing the resources of your master or of your boss. First time we see stewardship is in the Garden of Eden. Um, but the next two times we see it at its most important is number one with Noah. He had to steward the resources of a boat, resources of food, resources of animals because a flood was coming. And number two, the one I want to deal with, Joseph. So Joseph, his father puts him in charge of managing his brothers. Let me know what they're doing. Bring me back the reports. The brothers didn't like it. They attack him, throw him in a pit, sell him into slavery. He gets to Potiphar's house. The favor of God gives him favor with Potiphar, and Potiphar says, listen, I want you to manage my whole house, my servants, manage it, steward this, take care of all my resources. And he didn't have a problem doing it um, until Potiphar's wife came and was like, steward me, manage me, come sleep with me. He wouldn't do it. She lies on him. He gets thrown into prison. While he's there, the ward of the prison comes in and sees the favor of God on Joseph's life and says, I want you to manage this prison. Why are all these things important? Because the favor of God is on you to steward. I want you to put this, I want you to put this in the chat that stewardship is coded in our DNA. It's coded in our DNA. That's number one. Stewardship is coded in our DNA. Number two, the reason why we have a struggle with stewardship, I give you praise. Thank you, Lord. The reason why we have a struggle with stewardship is because of these activating words. The activating words is where a servant has to take care of these things for their master. They have to take care of these things for their master. Well, in our population, the thought process of a master is problematic for us. The thought process of a master suggests that somebody has control over us. And so, because of that, stewardship was a thought process, an ideology, a theory that was removed from the basic fundamental foundation of what we do on a regular basis. Because stewarding means we have to take care of something for somebody else. And for those of us who had parents and grandparents and great grandparents who watched uh uh I don't know how else to say this, who watched white babies and nursed white babies for our master, for their master, their slave owner, their boss. The word stewardship has a problem with, we have a problem with it because it's connected to it. It refers to us, or it kind of gives us the connotation, brings us in the thought process of slaves and the person that we're taking care of these things for as owners. And so we struggle with that. Stewardship, I got to take care of something for somebody else. No, I'm not going to do that. There's another phrase out there that is true, but we have embraced this as a lie. They tell us that knowledge is power. But for the longest time, y'all, knowledge was power for white people. Knowledge was not power for black people. Knowledge was not power for here in America, the American Indian. Knowledge was not power in the Crusades in Europe for non-Christian countries. It didn't matter how knowledgeable you were. Your religion made you powerful or inferior, and so did your money. So knowledge was not power to us. Money is money is what became the power to us. Why? We were owned. If we were owned, then we were slaves. How did we become slaves? Someone purchased us. So because someone purchased us, we are now considered slaves. They own us. So in our thought process, money is power. Not knowledge is power. Why? Because we know a lot of people who we are more intelligent than, we are smarter than, but they have more money than us. So who has the power? Some of us are a lot more intelligent than some of the police officers that we have encountered, but they seem to have the power. So this thought process of power has been convoluted. Who has the power is the struggle that some of us have when it comes to stewardship, because we don't believe we have the power, and we also don't believe that we are taking care of this for someone else and it's going to work out in our favor in the future. Ultimately, as a slave, ultimately as a servant, we take care of things for our master, and our master reaps the benefits of our stewardship. The master and his family reaps the benefits of our stewardship. So we take stewardship and we throw it out the window. Does that make sense? Does that make sense to y'all? We take the thought process of stewardship and we throw it out the window. Two keys to stewardship. It's the reason why we struggle. Two keys to stewardship. It's the only way that you can be successful at stewardship. Number one, I have to come to an understanding of who owns what I have to take care of. Because if you own everything that you take care of, then you can waste it. No harm, no foul. So we have to come into an understanding of who owns what you have to steward. If you're on your job, you cannot be wasteful on your job. Why? Because your name ain't on a building. Everything that you do looks good or looks bad for the person you are stewarding and stewarding resources for. So number one, we have to come into an understanding of who owns the resources. And number two, here's the most important part. Not only who owns it, but that it is our job to do right with our owner's money. Now, I just said to you, the moment that you start talking to Black people about ownership, the moment you start talking to Black people about ownership and about stewardship, they start thinking about ownership. They start thinking about slavery. They start thinking about masters. Ain't nobody gonna own me. I'm a grown A man, a grown A woman. And that, from that thought process, stewardship is now thrown out the window. It's completely thrown out. So, how amazing is God? We all agree, you gotta agree, that God owns everything. He owns everything. Now, here is the blessing of stewardship, okay? I'm about to give you the blessing. I'm about to give you the blessing of stewardship, okay? The blessing of stewardship is that the owner or the master only calls you in to stewardship if they believe they can trust you. I'm gonna say it again. Somebody put it in the chat. The owner or the master will only call you into stewardship if they believe they can trust you. And according to the Holy Scriptures, when Jesus is telling the parable about the stewards, it says this master calls together his servants and gives them resources or money. And then he goes away for a long time. So watch this. The only reason why you have been called, hallelujah, called into this season of stewardship, this honor and this privilege of stewardship is because your master owns you. Adam, who the heck is my master? The Bible clearly tells us that we have been purchased by the blood of Jesus. So we are brought with a price. Okay. So if we are brought with a price, then he owns us. It is our responsibility to make sure that we are stewarding well the things that we have been given. The Bible clearly speaks that we are um the Bible clearly speaks of that we are stewards. So we have been entrusted to take care of our master's goods. Okay. So the master has only called you in the stewardship because he trusts you. And then what does he do? He goes away. So the ability or the inability to manage your master's resources has nothing to do with whether he trusts you or not. He gave you instruction, take care of everything I've given you till I return. You don't believe me? Go back to Genesis chapter 1. In Genesis chapter 1, 26 through 28, he gives them instructions. So the Lord God says, let us make man in our image, in the image of, and after our likeness, and let them have dominion or rulership or stewardship or oversight or management of the fish of the sea, the fowl of the air, everything that creeps on the face of the earth. Let them have dominion. So he trusts us to rule or manage. And then he goes away. And here is the problem. Stewardship, put it in the chat. Stewardship requires individual responsibility and personal accountability. Please put it in the chat. Stewardship requires individual responsibility and personal accountability. First story. First story. Um, I didn't meet my father until I was 5. My father was in jail. Um, my mom took me to see my mom took my brother, me and my oldest brother Lanky, to see my dad. Um, I didn't know who this man was. I saw this man who picked me up and was like, "Hey, how you doing?" He was trying to talk to me. I didn't know who he was. Um, I was like, "Mom, where is this? Why are you taking us to this place?" And they had to open up these gates for us. Why are we in this place where we go in and then these gates close behind us? Um, Even if I wanted to climb the fence to get out, they had these circular things on the top and they kind of like look like spikes. I can't get out. I don't know who this man is. This man is talking to me and Lanky and gives Lanky a really big trophy. Lanky's my oldest brother, and then gives me this little trophy. I don't know what this trophy is. Dude, I don't know who you are. The last day of second grade, I come home from school and This same man who I'd seen 2 years prior is sitting in my house with his arms around my mom. Again, I don't know who this ninja is. Um, they call him my dad. I didn't know him the first 5 years of my life. Then I didn't see him for another 2 years. And now I come in the house and his arms are around my mom. I walked into my closet. I got those the red plastic wiffle ball bat, and walked out and was like, what are you doing with your arms around my mom? Because I ain't seen nobody with their arms around my mom. My mom was single my whole life. I ain't see her with nobody. What are you doing with your, because you are a stranger to me. I've known you 2 days of my whole life. You are a stranger to me. My mom takes the bat and she goes, this is your father. I never knew what that term meant. You want to know why? Because in that time, there were two families in my life at the time where there was a man present. Number one was Leroy Betts, who lived 3 houses over from me. And then there was Nathaniel Speece, who was my pastor at the time. Um, um, Actually, I can say there were 3 men in my life who had families, and they were in their family, and the other one was Joseph Fredericks. Okay, these were the only 3 men in the 7 years I had been alive who were living in the house with their family that I knew of. Everybody else, all my other friends, did not have their father in the house. Not the Fords, not the Eckards, not the Bakers, not the Kimes, not the Seths, nobody, not the Russells, not the Ingrams. Their fathers were not there. So the term father to me didn't connect between my dad and the 3 men that I knew, Joseph Fredericks, Leroy Betts, Nathaniel Speece, because the father was in the house. I hope you're understanding what I mean. So they didn't understand. I didn't understand what that meant. Um, for the next 10 years, from 7 to 17, mind you, my whole life, when it was me, my mom, and Lanky, my mom got up, went to work in Collegeville, which was like 25 minutes away, woke me and Lanky up. Lanky was responsible for making sure I got to school, walked me up to my school. We went to the same school, Elizabeth B. Barth Elementary School. And after school, we came home. I had homework to do. My mom would get home around 4 o'clock. Um, so Lanky and my mom ruled over me. They told me what I needed to do. Um, if I didn't, Lanky was 3 years older than me. Lanky would threaten me, and if the threat didn't work, then he would say he was going to tell mommy. The only time the threat didn't work, the only time the threat really, really worked from Lanky is when Lanky threatened me. Like I knew he was mad at me, and I better pull it together, or he's going to beat the hell out of me before I go to school. And then my mom is going to back him when my mom gets home, because the rule was listen to your brother. I was like, okay. So they were the rulers over me. Y'all got it? So then I come in the house and my mom's saying, this is my father. He don't look like Joseph Fredericks. He don't look like Leroy Betts. He don't look like Nathaniel Speece. So we had this little problem. Okay. I suffered abuse at the hands of my father, all types of stuff. Fast forward 10 years. Me and my father get into a fist fight and I almost killed him. Okay. Um, if Lanky hadn't um if Lanky hadn't caught my dad from the side, me and my dad were in a fight between the wall, the door to the basement, and the refrigerator. So y'all can imagine how tight that space was. And we were swinging at each other. And I caught him, and it stunned him, and his head came up. And when his head came up, I flashed back to when I was 8, and my Uncle Jimmy, who taught martial arts, said, if you hit somebody a certain space in their face, you can kill them. Just like that. kill him. And I went to do it. And Lanky caught my dad from the side. Bam. When Lanky hit my dad from the side, it knocked my dad's face out of the attack of my hand. So Lanky saved my father's life that day because I went to kill him and I lost it. Um, um, my mom ran to call my pastor at the time, Nathaniel Speece, and um, Lanky at the time was holding my dad in a lock and was like, "You go fight your son." I said, "Nah, Lanky, let this nigga go." And um, I took the knife and knocked the knife thing over because I wanted Lanky to let my dad go because in my head, if my dad attacks me again, I got my mom and my mom and my brothers, their eyewitness assault account that my father attacked me when I cut his throat. I'm telling y'all, that was the plan. That was where I was. My dad sees it. He said, "All right, let's take this outside." So he goes up to get his boots. And I'm sitting on the floor on the steps. "Come on, Lanky." I'm calling him by his first name. "Come on, nigga, I'm going to kill you." This is what I was telling him, y'all. I'm just telling you the truth. This is what I was telling him. Lanky grabs me and takes me out, like drags me out the house and down the street away from this whole situation. Um, it was a bad day, as y'all can understand. It was a bad day. A couple weeks later, me and my dad had kind of like come to an understanding and we kind of settled down. We were having a conversation and I told him, "Dad, I realize you don't love me. You don't love me." And I started going down through all these moments of when my dad wasn't there and my dad didn't care. I started going down the line. Um, um, my dad had a gambling issue, which is the reason why I don't gamble. I would love to, because I believe as a prophet, I would probably win. Just me. But I don't because my dad owned money to loan sharks. And my dad would drop me and Lanky off to pay these people money and then walk down the street and he would meet us around the corner. I didn't know at the time until I was 14 or 15 that our lives were in danger because one day I'm at my house and there's a knock on the door. I go to open up the door, and the guy who I had been dropping money off to every couple of months was like, "Adam, where's your father?" And I was like, um, "He's not here." He leans down in my face and he says, "Tell him I can't come here again and there not be a problem." I was like, "But he's not here." And his man said to me, "If I have to come here again and he's not here, then the problem I have with your dad, I'm going to have with you." My dad comes in the house. I told him what happened. He got in the car and he left. Um, um, Apparently he took care of it because shortly thereafter, I'm taking money back to the guy's house again. Um, but when I realized that my dad owed this man money, and this man was threatening my life, Lanky's life, Nathaniel's life, my baby brother at the time, my mom's life, whoever was in that house when this man came back, I was like, this dude don't love us. He don't love us. Um, so me and my dad are having this conversation, and I'm telling him, and he makes this statement to me. He says, "Adam, when you are in prison, you concern yourself with what you can control." He said, "It was my responsibility to make sure that I um, could take care of my food and I could take care of my toiletries." My food and my toiletries. He said, "What's the one thing He said, "What do you always see me doing when I go to the store?" My dad always brings back food, and he always brought back toiletries because he was trained in the prison system. He didn't have to worry about rent. He didn't have to worry about bills. He only had to worry about food and toiletries. And he said that's the reason why we struggled when I came home, because I wanted your mom to let me handle the business of the house. But your mom was home and she took care of you and Lanky. And she was the one who went to work and took care of bills and finances and all that stuff. All I concerned myself with was food from prison and toiletries from prison. Got it. That was what my dad had to steward over. While my mom was stewarding over Lanky and myself and making sure we had clothes and food and our medical bills, um, and you name it. My dad only had to concern himself with food and toiletries, and that's what he stewarded over. He didn't know any better. Um, so um, because he didn't know any better, he didn't know how to teach us. So when I got out and got my own place, I was good and I was strong for a while until um, um, I knew how to pay my rent, but nobody told me about renter's insurance. So when um, when my girlfriend came over to the house and I was washing dishes, um, I lived up on the third floor of a house. The first two floors were attorney's offices. And I went downstairs to see my girlfriend, completely forgot that uh, I had left the water running. And um, like I didn't really think anything about it. What I didn't know was that there was a leak in the pipe. There was a leak in the pipe. So when I come back in the house, I left the water on, turned the water off, and went on about my business. Everything was cool. No problem. I wake up in the morning to a banging on the door. When I open it up, it's one of the attorneys from downstairs, and they were like, there's a leak. The whole floor roof had fallen in under where the sink was. And I'm like, okay, my kitchen is not flooded, nothing. It came because the pipe was leaking. Back then, they're lawyers. They're real shisty at the time. Um, they didn't tell me that that was their responsibility. They said it was mine. And so I was going to have to pay it or I was going to have to move. And all I had to handle at that time was my car and my apartment, and things were really tight there, but I was handling it and I couldn't handle anything else. So now you are putting a um um an almost $4,000 bill that I didn't know I wasn't responsible for. You're putting that on top of me, and I already got to handle my food, my clothes, my car, and my rent. So most of the time, I was living and I was trying to survive. I was trying to survive. And another thing, just one more thing, would break the bank. It would break me because no one taught me how to handle my resources. Okay. That's my personal story. I told y'all in my intro that last week, that when I finally came out here to California, I was turning down all this money for music because I was called myself trying to be loyal to God. And what I didn't recognize was that I can't take the advice of someone who does not have my experience. Let me explain that. I was being offered all this money to do my music, and the person who was counseling me was not being did not have the experience of having this money being thrown at them. So what they said was, this is the love of money is the root of all evil. The devil's trying to distract you, blah, 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 turn it down. But I should have gone and spoken to somebody who was already in the music field and making good money, and finding out how they did it instead of taking the wrong advice. Why? Because stewardship, good stewardship, is the culmination of good advice and good application. I need y'all to put that. Um, Good stewardship is the culmination of good advice and good application. Bad stewardship is the culmination of bad advice or good advice with no application. So what we find out is that stewardship requires good application. It requires good information and good application. Good information and good application, or you can't be a good steward. So we talked about money. Uh, People said knowledge is power, but that doesn't work in the Black community because at the time we didn't have money. So we were smart, but we didn't have any money. So we came to find out that money is power, but the people who had money were dumb as hell. So what are we supposed to do, right? So, um, so number one, we had to figure out. You have to decide who is in charge of everything, and number two, what are you supposed to do with the resources of the person that's in charge? I would like to focus your attention, and we're almost done. I would like to, man, I've only been talking for 40 minutes. Jesus. I feel like I've been on here for an hour and a half. We are going to talk from Luke chapter 16. Luke chapter 16. And then I'm going to tell you um, the spirit behind bad stewardship. Luke chapter 16, I believe is it 1 through 13? Yeah. Um, so, um, Bible says, here is a story where it basically says, there's a guy, rich man, and the rich man calls together um, his accountants because he wants them to give an account of their stewardship. Um, and if you've been a good steward, you're cool. If not, you may no longer be a steward. Um, so he's trying to figure out the steward is trying to figure out how he can keep his job. So what he does is he goes and um, um, he tells everybody, I want you to take your bill. I want you to take your bill, and if you owe this amount, cut it in half and say you gotta cut this amount and say you owe this. So he says, he calls every one of his Lord's debtors to him in verse 5. Says unto the first, how much do you owe? He says, 100 measures of oil. He says, take your bill, sit down quickly and write 50. Then he says to another, how much do you owe? And he says, 100 measures of wheat. And he says, take your bill and write 80 or 80. And the Lord commended the unjust steward because he had done wisely. Does that make sense to you? Jesus says that his Lord commended the unjust steward because the thought process was he had done right by his master, when in fact he had cheated his master. He had cheated his master, making his master think that he was doing collections properly. But because his master trusts him, please hear me, because his master trusted him, when his master looks at these bills, he says, man, you are making sure that these people pay me. You are making sure that these people are doing it. I commend you. And then Jesus says, for the children of the world in their generation are wiser than the children of light. Basically, he's saying the world is smarter than the church. The world is smarter than the kingdom. I said, wow, that is a um a cold-blooded um um that is a cold-blooded story, because um Jesus is telling that in the world, they don't play fair. They don't play fair. In the world, the master trusts his steward to take care of his business, and he rolls on with it. If y'all check, this story is absolutely true. Um, um, Steve Harvey. Steve Harvey, a couple of years ago, got a phone call from his accountant, from his lawyer. Got a phone call from his lawyer and said, we got a problem. The IRS is wilding out. The IRS is saying you owe them millions of dollars. And he said, what? I got the checks that I wrote. I got proof of all these checks. Here, the accountant that was his accountant had passed away. And in the investigation, they had figured out that he was taking the funds from out of Steve Harvey's account, but he wasn't paying the IRS. He was then pocketing the money. This is online. You can check it. So Steve Harvey was trusting his steward to take care of all of his taxes. And when the steward didn't do it, the IRS still wanted their money. Because just because you call them servant or you call them steward doesn't mean that they can be trusted. Now turn over to Matthew chapter 25. Matthew chapter 25, starting at verse 14. It says this. It says, um, for the kingdom of heaven is as a man traveling into a far country, who called his own servants and delivered unto them his goods. And unto one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, to every man according to his several ability, and straightway took his journey. I could stop there. The kingdom of heaven is like a man who's traveling into the far country, who called together his own servants and gave them his goods, his property, his resources. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, to every man according to his ability. And then he took his journey. He left. He trusted them to handle their business, and he rolled. The Bible says that the one man who had been given 5 talents went and made another 5. The other one who had 2 went and made another 2. The other one who only had 1 decided to hide it because he was afraid to lose his master's money. You would think that that is a commendable issue. You put my money off to the side so that um, my money, I didn't lose my money. The servant comes back and presents the one. I hid your money. Um, I hid the talent that you gave me in the ground. And here goes the one that you gave me. Verse 25, and I was afraid and went and hid thy talent in the earth. Lo, there thou hast what is thine. Now imagine you're the master. You're looking at your three servants. You're looking at the one who hid the one talent you gave them. And he's telling you he was afraid because he didn't want to lose your money. And so he hid it. Standing next to the man, standing next to the man with the one talent, is the one guy who you gave two talents to, who flipped them and made two more. Standing next to that guy is another servant who had five talents, who flipped them, made five more. So you had 14 where you started off as 5, 2, and 1. Where you started off as 7, you now have 14 talents plus the 1, which is 15. So what does that tell you? It tells you that the economy in that area was such that you could double your money. And the master looks at his servant and says, you didn't do anything with what I gave you. You weren't even willing to take a risk and giving my money to the banker so I could have at least gotten the money back with interest. This is Matthew chapter 25, verses 14 through 30. And then he says this. He says, take the talent from him and give it to the one who's done something. And then he says this, cast ye, verse 30, and cast ye the unprofitable servant into outer darkness. So basically, bad stewards, y'all, go to hell. Bad stewards go to hell. The Lord wanted me to talk to y'all about stewardship because he said, Adam, I started y'all out with dominion over the whole earth. And he said, the enemy has tricked y'all into thinking that stewardship is predominantly about money. He said, but I expect you to steward your house, your relationships, your conversations, your meetings, your marriage, your children, your friendships. I said, how do I steward what I don't have control over? And he said, everything I've called you to steward, I have control over, but I expect you to manage it well. I expect you to manage it well. And he said, and because you don't manage it well, you can't progress. I said, okay. Then he said this, the spirit, I want y'all to put this in the chat for me, please. The spirit behind bad stewardship is the accuser. The spirit behind bad stewardship is the accuser. The spirit behind bad management or bad stewardship is the accuser. Remember, I was telling you, and I had to, and this is our history and our foundation. Got to give it to y'all before we can really get into this. Um, Remember, I was telling you about Willie Lynch, and he was like, "Listen, you're killing these slaves as people. They're not people. They're stock. They're animals. So why are you killing good stock? They're your livestock. They're not people. So don't hang them in trees. There's a way to control them. Watch this. Because just like animals, if you control them, they will give birth to other, they will replicate what's inside of them. If you take care of horses, they will give birth to other horses. If you take care of sheep and oxen and cows, they will give birth to other sheep, oxen, and cows that you can control. Why? Because every time they give birth, it gives you control over another generation. Every time the thing that you control gives birth, it gives you power over another generation. And so change your mindset. Hear the warfare. Change your mindset. Don't see them as people. Think of them as livestock. Why is this important? Because 150 or 60 years later, in 1776, when they're writing the Declaration of Independence and they're writing our Constitution, they have decided that we are not 100% human. We are going to give them representation as three-fifths a man, but we are not going to give them the same honor as we give ourselves. They are not 100% legal, Lord God. They are not legal. They are not legitimate. They are born on this earth, but they are not legitimate. After they've said that all men are created equal, all men, that we are endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights that should not be able to be taken care of us, but they did not mean slaves. Why? Because slaves are livestock. Remember, I told you, it's the accuser. So the accuser says they're not human, they're livestock. And if you learn how to control them, if you learn how to control them, when they give birth, you will be able to control their children and their children's children. And every generate and every thing that they give birth to, you can control them as the next generation. And this is how we do it. Number one, we need to separate the men from the women. Number two, we need to separate the light skin from the dark skin. Number three, we need to, in separating the men from the women, we now have to abuse the children so that the mothers protect the children because the man is not around. So I'm going to give y'all one of the examples of the Willie Lynch letters. One of the things that he says is, I want you to take all the women, put them in a circle. Then take a pregnant woman and put her in the middle of this circle. Then I want you to cut the baby out of her stomach and stump the baby. Read it. The Willie Lynch papers. And stump this baby. Why? It's going to cause the women to protect their children, and and as long as there is not a man in sight, then the woman now protects the baby, the son or the daughter, instead of the son protecting the mother. The son is not a protector because she's going to coddle him, and this is the way you get the mom to control the children and make the children submissive to the master. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Um, so now the men have been separated from the women. So you wonder why it's not a hard thing to make a man not take care of his kids, to make a man not want to be around his children at all. And it's because this was something that was embedded in us generation to generation. The separation of the man from his woman, the separation of the man from his children. And as a slave, he had to keep on working, but he could never get to his woman. He had to work. He could never get to his children. He had to work for someone else and then go home alone. This established the independence of the man, that he could still produce seed. He could still get people pregnant, but he would always go back to his own place because he had no responsibility, because he was working for his master. The accuser tells him, this is your lot in life. You can't do any better. And if you want, this is where this is where I'm about to get in trouble. And if you want rights, then you are not allowed to rebel violently. You have to do it in a nonviolent manner, in a very peaceful way. You are not allowed to take back your power. You have to do it in a non-violent way. And all the time that we are trying to get back our stuff non-violently, our inalienable rights, non-violently, our children are killing each other. Our children are dying. Our children are creating other children, and there is no man in the room to say, stop this, pull this back, you can't do this. There is no protection. There is no covering. What did the accuser do? The accuser made sure that Black men would not be able to steward their families or the next generation. Do y'all see that? I need y'all to answer me. I did a lot of talking and teaching. It's 8:01. Did y'all see? Do y'all see that? Is this making sense? I'm not losing y'all, am I? I'm 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 taking a moment to actually look at the notes right now. I want to make sure this made sense. Okay, so 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 the enemy is using the accuser to tell the man, you still have the power to get a woman pregnant, but because you work for your master, you have to go back and be alone. Then the accuser tells the woman, your man ain't nowhere around. He can get you pregnant, but he's not allowed to stay around. It is your responsibility to take care of your children. It is your responsibility to be the authority in the house. Why is that important? Because now that slavery has been abolished, the husband tries to come home, and the woman has been running and taking care of things for so long that she runs the house. The man has been dealing, oh, that's on one side. She's running the house because she's been running the house, been taking care of the children, been taking the seed of the man inside of her and producing children, and now she's running the house. The man who is used to working but coming home with no added responsibility, extra responsibility, he works, he comes home. The wife has run of the house. So he sits down on the couch and he watches TV because he has no vision for where the house is supposed to go, because the master told him that his only vision, the only future he has, is making sure he works for someone else. And because this is the slave owner and the master's thought process, whenever, whenever, um, whenever we are trying to better ourselves, the master says, "Oh, I don't want to talk about this tonight, right now." But the master says, um, "Listen, I know I did wrong by y'all. I know that the slave owners have adopted this Willie Lynch mentality, and it says that the black man comes and he works for the master, and then he goes home alone, while the the black woman has to take care of the killed kids and run the house and all that other stuff. And then finally, when they're allowed to come back together, the man now can't leave the home because he doesn't know how to. He's been conditioned, programmed to come in the house, sit on the couch, and not do anything else, while the woman is the entrepreneur, while the woman is the creator of, she's the person with the ingenuity and the creativity and the passion to get a thing done, right? So now they're all in this house. And then the master says, "You want to go to school? You want to go to college? You want to, if you want to do something better with your life, you have to go to college." All right, so let's go to college. And then, but the master says, if you're going to college, you got to pay for it. You got to pay for your education, and education is expensive. And in order for us to create education, you got to pay us for it. And if you can't pay for it outright, that's all right. We'll give you these loans. So now, in order for you to get the education they told you you needed, you have to pay them. You have to go in debt to get an education that's supposed to set your family free. Y'all understand? The accuser says you have to pay money to make money. The accuser says if you want to be a student, you have to pay these teachers all this amount of money. And then what they'll do is they will give you a piece of paper that says now you are able to go and you are able to operate in this sphere. Is education wrong? No. Is having to pay for the next 10 to 20 years to pay back the education, to pay back the money for the education that you got, is that wrong? Oh, yes, it is. Um, in an honorable society, woohoo, in an honorable society, if I charge you $20,000 to learn a skill set, but I can't guarantee your placement and your money in order to pay it back, I've trapped you. I know somebody's mad, but I'm so far past Karen right now because I have to teach y'all this. Um, um, for the 2021-2022 academic year, The average price of tuition and fees came to, um, for private colleges, um, $38,000 a year for private colleges, and $11,000 or $10,740 at public college if you're an in-state resident. So imagine this. Imagine that in order you imagine you're going to a four-year college. If you're going to a four-year college, then 38,000, let's round it up to 40,000 times 4 years. $160,000 that you're at a private college to get your degree, okay? Or if you're at a public college, 11 times 4, $45,000, right? This is your bill on top of all the other bills you have to take care of. The plan is that the enemy never wants you to get out of debt. The enemy never wants you, Pastor Dave, I love you, sir. The enemy never wants you to get out of debt. I was listening to something today that blew my mind. Um, um, the guy said this. He said, "Do you know that the reason why homes are so high is because it's a way to continue the narrative of debt? It's a way to continue the narrative of debt. Why? Because a home will cause you to a mortgage on your home will cause you to mortgage your future." I'm about to say something. Let me tell you why. Mortgage, coming from um, uh, the um, the related word mortuary. It's designed, home loans are designed to get you to mortgage. When you mortgage your house, you are actually not mortgaging your house. You are using debt to mortgage your future. What do you mean, Adam? It means that there are certain things that you are not able to do because you are in debt to your mortgage. You are, and so now you are mortgaging your future. What does that mean? It means that now your mortgage is your master. Your mortgage is your master. You have to pay your mortgage or you lose your house. Debt is designed to keep you in a pit and to keep you in a hole. I got 20 minutes. Um, let me get y'all out of this because so what they do is they build these homes, apartment buildings. Honorably, they could say, you can own this apartment, you can own this condo for $80,000 to $100,000 outright. But why do that? Why do that? I'm talking about California right now. Why do that if I remember I said the kingdom of this generation are wiser than the kingdom of light? Why do that if I know that you can pay? I could ask you to pay $100,000 outright to own this outright, and all you pay is taxes, or I can charge you $2,000 or $2,500 a month in rent. That gives me 25 to $30,000 a year in rent. Now, in this apartment building, let's say that there are 100 units. If there are 100 units, let's try this. $2,500 a month times 12 months in a year, $30,000 times 100 units, times 100 units. So that means that everybody is paying me for this apartment building with 100 units. I'm making $3 million a year. That's not connected to what any type of extras or whatever I got to charge. Okay, $3 million a year. So what I do is I charge you rent to live in this space. So you own nothing. Your lease is only guaranteed for a certain amount of time. And then you have to go and you would have to start over. The Lord said to me this. He said, Adam, he said, stewardship was designed. I designed stewardship because I wanted y'all to rule over my stuff. Now, if y'all mess it up, you got the right to, because I gave you, here you go, dominion. Adam, what's the difference between the master and the steward? The difference between the master and the steward, put it in the chat, is the master owns everything, but he gave the steward dominion. He gave the steward dominion. What does that mean? That even though the master owns everything, the steward has the right to dominate everything the master owns. Put it in the chat. I have been given the right by God to dominate everything God owns. I have been given the right by God to dominate or have dominion over everything God owns. When you realize that you have been given dominion to dominate everything God owns, which is this earth, your thought process will continue to change because you will realize that stewardship, not just knowledge, and definitely not money, stewardship is the power, because stewardship gives you favor. Stewardship is the power, hallelujah, because stewardship gives you favor. That was a lot. Like, people don't like talking about stewardship because when you start talking about stewardship, you start thinking about slavery and master and them owning you. So they don't like talking about it. They don't like talking about stewardship because stewardship, they always put stewardship with money and not stewardship with investment. I'm gonna deal with that next. I'm gonna deal with that next week, but I want y'all to put it in the chat for the people who are watching. Um, uh, Raina said that a mortgage is called a death pledge, right? Because it allows you, right? Man, Pastor David said it gets to get you to owe until death. Jesus. And it's a plan. And oh my God, my mortgage got approved. So you can owe them till you die. Most mortgages are 25 to 30 years. And then in order to make your note cheaper, they will allow you to refinance. But I know that God is about to give favor for you to move out of lending and loaning, out of the space of loans into the space of stewardship. They even have 40 years, man. But stewardship, right, right. Stewardship is the power because stewardship gives you favor. And um, so the enemy is trying to keep you locked in a world system. He's trying to keep you locked in a world system. This world system is designed, as Pastor David said, to keep you owing until you die. Stewardship requires you to take advantage over your resources. Take advantage of your resources. Stewardship is using your resources. Are you ready? Are you ready? Stewardship is God's way to allow you to use the resources He gave you to stay out of debt. One more time. One more time. Stewardship is the method that God has given you to use the resources He gave you in order to stay out of debt. Oh my God, Pastor David, you messing with me. Let me put this up on the screen. Um, I believe that. I believe it's Babylon. Let me hit this real quick. Pastor David just said something that I was always confused about until tonight. Pastor David, I love you, sir. Thank you so much for this. He said that is why a child of God can walk into a car dealership and walk out with a free car or get homes paid for them. Listen, I want to go in a different direction. I don't know what um directly what Pastor David um his direction um um like if you get a home paid for you, that's a great thing because you ain't got to pay it back. But what I saw when I walk out with a free car, I'm thinking of um when people walk into car dealerships and walk out with a car and no money down. They 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 get loans, um ridiculous loans that on the front end don't cost them a whole lot, but it's going to kill you in the end because the enemy is trying to get us locked into a system. He's trying to get us locked into a system that we can't get out of. The enemy is trying to get us locked into a system that we can't get out of. But the Lord is about to change our minds. In order to do that, we got to change our mindset. I'm about to walk us through this space of stewardship. Um, I'm about to walk us through this space of stewardship. Um, we have a lot of things to learn before we get there, but I'm just going to put this out there for you right now, that the Lord said, I'm going to give you a secret. And when you learn how to operate here, It will change you and everybody who does what you say. I believe I released this word the first week of January. The Lord called it the 60-40 principle. You live off the 60 and you save the 40. It requires discipline. It requires stewardship. It's the 60-40 principle. I need y'all to put it in the chat. The 60-40 principle. Okay. God has given us um God has given us the power of stewardship. Um God has given Sandra Olaria. God has given us the power of stewardship because stewardship gives us access to favor. Stewardship gives us access to favor. It is the answer to the world system of debt. Stewardship gives you favor. And where you get favor, favor is God's grant. Favor is God's grant that you don't have to pay back. Favor is God's grant. So we are going to be talking. I have to walk us through this principle, and I gotta walk it through. I'm learning with y'all. I promise you, I'm learning with y'all. God has us in this space where he wants us to understand the plan of hell. I have some financial people who are going to come in and walk with us after we have dealt with this stuff, because some of us ooh wee ooh wee yeah, stewardship requires relationship with the Father. And it does that because stewardship, remember the first two things? Number one, you have to know who, you have to identify who owns everything. And once you identify that God owns everything, then it becomes a matter of how do I take care of the resources that he has allowed me to work over. The Lord uh, just showed me something. Um, Ladies, I have a question for you. Ladies on here, um, for most professional women, how many times a month do professional women get their nails done? Go ahead, put it in the chat. I need to see what y'all say. How many times a month do professional women get their nails done? Ladies, how many times a month do professional women get their nails done? Sandra, you said zero. See, Rhonda, for those of you, Sandra, I'm you in the islands, gal. So most women in America, um, Pastor David said 2 to 4 times. That's what I was going to say. Rhonda, Rhonda, Darlene, and them. Andrea, y'all said Andrea Hill. God bless you from YouTube. Um, said every other week or twice a month. Okay. Um, Ladies, tell me something. Am I right when I say to get your nails done, you're looking at because I'm telling some of the people I know, they spend money. So it's going to be what? Am I fair to say $75 to get your nails done? Hands and feet, whatever. Um, 2 times out of the month, but pretty much every 2 weeks. Is it fair to say that you might spend $75 to get your nails done? Is that fair? Give me a yes or no. Because the Lord just showed me something. 65. Devonna said 120. Lord God. Both are more than $75. Jesus. Devonna, 120? Lord have mercy. Okay. All right. So listen, y'all. So this is what the Lord said. I know I got Jesus's mind. Um, all right, y'all. So let's go with the 75, okay? Let's go with the 75. So if you're doing $75 a month, $75 every time you get it done. So 75 times 2, we know that's 150, right? Times 12 is $1,800 a year. $1,800 a year. Please stay with me. $1,800 a year. Now, let's say that each month, back and forth, you are spending $30 in gas each month to go back the 2 times to get your nails done. $30. $30 times 12 is 360. Add 360 to the 1,800. That's 2160. But let's say that every time you go get your nails done, you get some food or you go to Starbucks or whatever. Okay? So let's add another 2160. $25. I'm being nice. 25 times 12 is another 300. 2,100 plus 300. Just on your nails, ladies. I'm about to bring something home. Um, Guys, we are spending, we ain't even talking about getting hair done. On our haircuts, somewhere between $30 and $50 on our haircuts. So every year, we're spending $2,500 just on our nails to get back and forth and maybe get something to eat. Hmm. Hmm. $2,500. Now, let me tell you what God said to me. uh, let, oh, well, God bless you, Sandra. Oh, Rhonda said, don't leave out the tip. Oh God. All right. So we at $2,500. Listen, for those of you who are connected to the prophetic evolution, you're going to love what I'm about to say. Okay. I'm telling you right now, you're gonna love what I'm about to say. What the Lord showed me, um, the Lord said, Adam, I am giving you dominion to manage my resources. I said, okay. He said, for those who serve the prophetic evolution, certain things they shouldn't have to worry about. Said, okay. So what we'll do is connected to the evolution will be our own nail shop. And those who serve the prophetic evolution or are members of it and are good stewards with what they need to do, they will never have to pay to get their nails done. Ever. Ever. As a member of TPE, we will have our nail shop online. You will be able to get your nails done. You will get a free voucher to get your nails done once, hands and feet, one time every week by a licensed, professional, excellent nail esthetician. Okay? So you won't have to pay to get your nails done. Um, God is giving us dominion. So we are going to have our own gas station. And the funds that TPE uses and stuff, we're going to get our own gas thing. And those who steward their money well, you will pay military prices with a discount for your gas. So if gas is $4, but the military has it at $3.60, it will be my point that you will always pay 10 cents less than the military. Why? Because we are going to be good stewards. There are advantages to being a good steward. And here's the problem. The problem is that we haven't been able to see it. Why? Because you've been given all your money to the building fund, and there's no building. You've been given all your money to a building fund that does not work out in your favor. Yeah. Why is that? Because this is what the Lord told me. The Lord said, Adam, take care of the people, and they'll take care of you. Take care of the people, and TPE will never have anything to worry about. When people are good, when people are good stewards over their finances and they realize that they have what they have because God has given them access to these resources, then the space where they are getting their wisdom, their education, their information from, then they will make sure that that place is always open, that that place is always taken care of. Adam, what about the people who don't live here? What about the people who are connected to TPE who don't like live in like California or live in places where TPE will actually have locations? That's that part is easy too. Rhonda is probably going to kill me about this because um, I got this from the Lord and I haven't run this past our financial team or whatever. But what we will do is out of the money that you invest in what we do here, we will send you a voucher. Now, if you don't live in the spaces where our spaces are, then we will send you a voucher for you to at least get your nails done twice a month. But that we will take that out of the money you invest. For those who live where our spaces are, they will have access to our space on site. Anyway, maybe I should have dropped that bomb later. But I want y'all to know that what God has done is God is showing me wisdom. Because watch this. When everybody learns how to live on the 60-40 principle, and when they learn and see how it works, eventually you will be living. You ready? Eventually you will be able to live off of your 40% interest that you put away every month. You will eventually be able to live off of the 40%. And when you're able to live off of the interest of the 40%, sky's the limit. Sky's the limit. Father, Pastor Dave asked me to pray for Epic Encounters. They do need a building. Pastor Dave is putting his faith out there to ask for a church free of charge. I can believe God for that because Epic Encounters is good ground. Father, would you give Epic Encounters the building you have for them, free of charge? I put my faith with Pastor David for that because Epic Encounters is good ground. In Jesus' name, amen. It is 8:39. I am going to let y'all go. We have dealt with a lot tonight. Go back, please. Take notes and keep a journal of these stewardship lessons, please. I love y'all. God bless you. If you feel led to make an investment in TPE and you want to sow a seed of investment in TPE, the information is right here. Please do me a favor. Go to thepropheticevolution.com, enter your email address to become a part of our journey, or you can text the word evolve to 888-592-2805. It's right here at the bottom of the screen. Please text evolve to 888-592-2805. Uh, uh, that's what I meant to do. All right, y'all. I am going to let y'all go. I hope y'all have a good night. This was a lot of information, I know, but I had to give it to you. I told y'all we have a long plow through this, but when it's over, I promise you it will change your life. Some people struggle with stewardship because of the spirit of distraction. They have so many things going on in their life that they can't focus on what God is telling them to do, what God is showing them. And because of that, they'll never get out of the demon of debt. But that won't be us. For we are called with a purpose. Thank you. Praise the Lord. I'm glad that this blessed y'all. I'm letting y'all go. Have a good night. Sit up under this word or come back and check it out tomorrow, either here or on youtube.com. You can Google the prophetic evolution. And this will be up within the next couple of minutes. All right. I love y'all. God bless y'all. Have a great night.